Hello everyone and welcome back to SGTV. Today we are talking about job routes for electricians. And the first one in the series is talking to Mike from Residual about industrial installs. So Mike, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Hello mate, yeah, I'm very, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. So before we get into the ins and outs of industrial installs, could you just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so my name's Mike. I'm 24. I've been an electrician for almost 9 years. Started doing it straight out of school at 15. And yeah, worked in all sectors, commercial, industrial and domestic. And now I find myself working for a firm that does it all basically, but I primarily do the commercial and industrial stuff for our firm. So yeah, that's my sort of in a nutshell story, I guess.
To go into industrial electrics, do you need different qualifications or can you just use your basic qualifications?
You definitely can. I think that's the entry level, I would say. I mean, there's no rules to it, you know. Obviously, people want to see your certs, and generally you want to be a gold card holder to be working in that sort of sector, just because it would be specified. So you know you won't get onto sites without a gold card, you know, unless you're an apprentice, and then you'll be accompanied by a gold card holder. So generally that's the sort of entry requirements, and obviously to get a gold card you have to, you know, tick all those boxes on top of just doing, you know, your college course and what have you.
So for any of our viewers that don't know, what is the gold card?
So the gold card is a JIB, I believe it's with the JIB and the ECS scheme, and it's basically a card which lists your qualifications, and that have been checked by the people that run it. And it also comes accompanying with a health and safety qualification. So if you just leave college, you're normally exempt because you would have done one recently within college. But if you haven't, then you'll have to do like your CSCS sort of level of. I think there might be a specific electrical one now, but when I did it, it was the CSCS sort of health and safety exam, and then you put all your qualifications together as well. You've got to have done your AM2. And stuff like that. I think you have to have like a year's experience as well. I'm pretty sure. Otherwise, you'd go down as an improver or something. But yeah, there's lots of different criteria and lots of different cards. But generally, they'll want a card on an industrial site, as well as a few other things, you know. But just to get in the door is a gold card.
So you're going to need experience before you can go into actual real life.
Yeah, I think so. If you do an apprenticeship with an industrial commercial firm, then you'll be pretty sweet. But I think if you're coming from outside of that industry, then definitely, you know, but you'll get worked out pretty quick as well. There's lots of systems in place on industrial jobs where, you know, there's a hierarchy, there's management on site, and there's responsible persons. So I find the people who may be lacking experience or whatever, they stick out like a sore thumb, I find. So yeah, you know, like I've also got triple STS, which is just a management qualification, which applies to any trade. You know, it's not electrically biased, but that puts me in a position where if I think it's up to 20 people or something, but I'm basically responsible for the people that work under me for my company. For our company, but I'm also responsible for like other people on site. So if I see someone doing something dangerous, I don't know them, I've never met them before in my life, by being a black card holder, you know, holding that qualification, I am responsible for their safety as well. So if I didn't say anything, didn't do anything about it, and something happened, then I would be just as culpable, if not more culpable than them for, you know, the accident that happened and the health and safety at work implications and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, that's the environment you're working in, rather than someone's house where you're your own man. You know, there's lots of, you could get called out for doing something that you're not competent in or inexperienced in or dangerous, by someone who you don't even know. So that's just a sort of, I think there's lots of systems in place is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah. It sounds like it's for the better though. We've just recently done an episode talking about safe isolation and general sort of safety, and we heard a sad story of someone who it was on a commercial job, and the power wasn't turned off, and they sadly lost their life. And it sounded like there was all sorts of failures going on. That everyone was in a rush. I mean, we've all been on jobs where you're in a rush, and you've got multiple firms doing bits and bobs. You've got audio being tested, so the person who was beneath the guy who died couldn't hear him or anything like that because of audio. And one of the things we were talking about was how important it is to have someone on site in that team who is sort of leading and is responsible, and how not many places particularly have that. It sounds like you guys do. It sounds like you're pretty well structured, that you've got, like yourself, you've got certain qualifications and cards to make sure you're up to the job of looking after people and their safety.
Yeah, I think some sites it's, you have designated the term, sort of coined term is black hats, because you have the black management card. So then you have black hats. So they wear a black hat to distinct themselves from the other trades. And obviously you can have, chip it, all the trades. If we're on a big site, ourselves as an electrical firm might have 2 or 3 black hats, just because you have a certain amount of people, or we're working across 3 floors, or, so that's the system you have there. But, it's some sites I go on and there's other black hats, that are put in by the site management. So I'll just get my gold card out because I don't need to almost put, because the problem is not that it's, the safety culture is if you are, if you're getting that card out and wearing that hat, you are a responsible person. So if there's more than enough people on site, I don't need to muddy the waters by being another black hat. Do you know what I mean? But then some sites where there's not a requirement, I'll go, no, I'm gonna wear the black hat today, and I'm gonna do that because I feel like there should be, I should take responsibility, here. But then some sites you don't have a choice. They'll go, for every 6 people, we want someone with triple STS, for example, and stuff like that. Or you've got to have at least 1, or, we want at least 2, or, So some of the contractors we work for specify it, and then I'm doing a job at the minute on an industrial estate, and we're the only contractors there. But with regards to the client, I'm I'm getting my black card out, and I'll take the responsibility for the health and safety within my boundaries on that site, just because we're the only contractor there. So we've got to, even though they haven't specified it or anything like that. But yeah, it's good on the bigger sites because it's very mandated, but it's still, once you get down to the smaller sites, the smaller commercial industrial, it can still be a bit of a free-for-all. But it's like, we've got a company health and safety policy, it's like 60 pages deep, that we've written specific to our company, and we've had to write that to do work for Graham's Construction and Sir Robert McAlpine and all that. That's the sort of stuff they want. But then what we found is we actually use that health and safety policy when we're around Doris's house, changing the light switch, but we didn't have it before. So it's all moving in the right direction, definitely.
I think a lot of people sort of laugh about how sort of strict we've gone in terms of health and safety, and maybe in some instances in other sectors it might be a bit over the top, but I think the more I talk to electricians and the more things I hear, I definitely think that when you've got certain systems in place, it's for the better. It's not there for some jobs worth's argument of trying to justify their position. I think it's there for the right reasons.
Yeah, when I was coming up, it was very, you haven't had a belt yet. And, it was like a coming of age thing. And no one would respect you if you hadn't had a belt and all this. And there's a real, lads sort of culture about it. But as I get older... That's
crazy though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like, you're not a real electrician, so you've had a potentially fatal electric shock. I'd rather avoid that if I could.
And, you come in at a young age and you're very naive and stuff. So, and you're trying to fit in on site, and, building sites are like that anyway. There's a lot of bloke mentality on that. But, camaraderie and what have you. But as I get older, and I've had a few belts myself, none intentional, but it happens and you learn from them. But I've made a promise to myself that I'm never going to get a belt again. Do you know what I mean? I'm never gonna. And you can make that decision yourself, because there's stuff that I'll go, no, I'm not doing that. I'll ring the office up and say I'm not doing that because there's a potential, But as I get older, even with the lads, with the apprentices, I've got like 3 proving units and testers on my van, and I only need one myself. But I'll just have them where, I'll be working with one of the apprentices and he's just got a set of testers. I'll chuck him the proving unit and the whole kit, and I say, no, you use that and just bring it back when you're done, just you've got no excuse whatsoever. I don't care how long it takes you, if it's live or whatever. We work safely, and that's that. But when I was coming up, it was very much, just just cut it if it goes bang, just loads of stuff like that. Used to wear the bangs in your cutters were like service stripes, and it's bad, but yeah, it's changing, and I think the newer generations are a lot more savvy to it, as well as even just electrical standards and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of the newer people joining the industry are a lot more, perfectionists, a lot more neater, a lot more. We follow the regs and get told that we're snowflakes and stuff like this because we're so precious about these little regs and all these little rules and stuff. But the standards are improving, I think, personally, in both health and safety and just in install standards. So
I don't see anything wrong with having a bit of care for your own self-preservation and being alive at the end of your job. I don't see that as a bad thing at all. What would you say is what is an industrial electrician compared to, say, a domestic? Because a lot of Sparkies and electricians that we have on the show, they're majority domestic electricians. So we've never really spoken to an industrial electrician. So what would you say are the main differences?
Yeah. So first of all, I think a lot of people, they get, commercial and industrial, they do cross over a lot. But strictly speaking, industrial is, anything that's serving industry. So the main things are, power plants, the water industry, factories that serve industries, like a car factory. You'd probably call it industrial because cars are, industrialized now. There's a whole reliance on cars. Do you know what I mean? They're part of our lives. As a factory that makes something else, you might not almost call it industrial. It's more commercial because they're a commercial company. But generally, it's warehouses, it's places that serve industry or serve stuff that we need, so your water, your gas, your electric, anything like that. Some warehouses are a lot of automated places and stuff like that. And then, even just down to food distribution warehouses. You could have a warehouse which is basically commercial, where you just have, a few light fittings and a few shelves. And then you can have a warehouse which has a giant fridge built within it, and an ammonia plant and all that. So they're both warehouses, but one's probably more on the commercial side, like your Argos warehouse sort of thing. And then you've got one where they're refrigerating food. It's a giant fridge, and there's so much going on, and that would be more on the industrial side. But it's just, anything like that. You're talking 3-phase, you're talking, metal containment, glass jobs. And
for people who aren't familiar with 3-phase and containment, that kind of thing, because we might have people looking to get into the industry as well as new electricians or even experienced electricians who are only focused in one particular sector. Could you just go over just sort of the basics of 3-phase containment, that kind of stuff, the kind of work, the nitty-gritty kind of thing?
So most industrial installs are just they're 3-phase installations, just because of the amount of power and the equipment that you're going to be using. That's 400 volts between phases, and still your 230 to neutral. Very similar to, like most houses have single phase. They'll just have one of the phases tapped off the road or wherever, where there will be 3-phase. They'll instead of just utilising one of them, you're using all 3. and some motors are three phase, some equipment's three phase, and obviously your raw power, you just want that, you're tripling your intake, So and then the whole containment thing it's just made to suit the environment. So if you're, for instance, at a water pumping station which serves an area, a town, or whatever, that is obviously going to be wet, So you're going to want stuff like stainless steel containment, because it's going to be suited to face off corrosion and stuff like that. Or if you're in a warehouse with forklifts flying around, you're going to want galvanized steel, containment in case of forklift crashes into something and stuff like that. So you really base your containment off of the environment that it's sitting in, but generally it's heavy duty, generally it's metal, and there's lots of things put in place to help the installation survive. For instance, we did a giant dishwasher where it's all the trays. I don't know if you've had food delivered, but the trays, they come in, they put thousands of them through this giant, it's basically a washing machine. And all the tube on it was stainless steel. It was getting welded to the machine rather than just screwing it to it. It's getting welded to it. We were having to wire brush stuff and then coat it in a lacquer, because where the stainless steel had been damaged, then it's lost that stainless steel sort of protection. So we're having to lacquer it with like a resin to then cover that back up so that water can't get in, And it's just that deeper level of they don't want this thing to rust. Basically, we're rewiring it, retubing it, because it's all rusted. So they don't want that to happen again. So, it's just that sort of level. The thing is with industrial and commercials, generally someone's done a lot of the thinking for you. Generally, there's a smart set of architects and designers who have done all the thinking for you. So it sounds very, from the outside, it might sound very exciting and cool and stuff, but generally you're working to a spec, you're working to a drawing. And a lot of commercial and industrial jobs are large scale. For instance, a warehouse, you're not going to be doing it on your own. So it can be quite monotonous at times, I guess. You are just another number following a drawing, putting another length of tray up, another bit of conduit up. But luckily for me, my company does a lot of smaller industrial jobs, so we get to do like all factors of it and see the job through rather than just being on a big site. For instance, they're building that nuclear power plant at the minute down south, and there'll be hundreds of electricians on there just doing the same thing every single day, and that probably wouldn't appeal to some people, just putting tray up for 6 months every single day, but that is the reality of industrial installs. They are big, and they are, there is a lot of the same sort of thing when you're on those jobs. So I think people don't realise that.
Do you think it would be a difficult transition going to or from sort of your domestic installations?
Definitely. I think if all you've done is domestic or all you've done is industrial and you're crossing over, I think definitely. Just because you'll build up habits, like domestic, I find is harder than industrials and commercial sometimes, just because you've got to think for yourself, you've got to come over the problems yourself, you've got to design stuff yourself, you've got to take responsibility for it. For instance, if I'm on a job and something goes in the wrong place, it's generally because I followed the drawing to the letter and the drawing's wrong, as if I put something wrong in someone's house, it's why have you done that? So you've got to take responsibility for that. And I think a lot of industrial electricians wouldn't grasp that. I guess they're like, they turn up like, where's the materials, where's the drawing, where's my brew room, and really it's like, no, you've got to do it, you've got to do it yourself. And in the same breath, I think a lot of domestic electricians would struggle because they're, generally they're their own man. They make their own, they do stuff their way. As there'll be stuff, on jobs where you think it's absolutely ridiculous, but you've got to do it. Hard to think of an example, but there's loads of things like some people, when you bend conduit, some contractors want you to spray the bend in galv spray, because where you bend it, you're derating it, I guess, you could say. So you spray it in gal spray just to remove that sort of thing, which is really mundane. It makes the process take a lot longer, stuff like that. Or they'll want cable tags on everything. So every single cable is got to have a cable tag on it. So instead of just making a socket off, you're putting the little cable tags on, So as when you're your own man, if you want to do it, you can. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, So there's that sort of thing. And I also think, no disrespect, because I've done domestic for 3 years, and I've found I learned more on domestic than I ever did industrial. When it comes to like wiring and stuff like that, taking responsibility, dealing with clients and all that sort of thing, and running jobs. But there's so much to industrial electrics, I think. You get, it's a bit like plumbers, some people are just pipe fitters, and you get people that just do containment and they're amazing at it. And that's because you can literally specialize if you wanted to in industrial containment or in industrial control panels. You just commission control panels because there's so much to know just in that one avenue that you can't know it all, sort of thing.
And that's the thing with this series, the job routes for electricians. We're trying to open people's eyes as to say, once you become a qualified electrician, you don't have to just stick with your domestic or your commercial. There's so many different ways, and like you've just said, inside of these sectors like industrial, that branches off.
I think the problem is they're not like known things. So they're not, when I was in college, no one said, you can do this, you can do that, but you can specialize in fire alarm, you can specialize in containment. Some companies just pull in cables. They just pull in, because on these industrial sites, you'll have 800 mil single core armoured, and then you have 8 of them per phase, because obviously you can't get a 4,000 millimeter squared cable because it'd be ridiculous. So you pull in 800 millimeter, or whatever, and you have a company that just pulls them in, and a company that's just done the ladder racking, and then another company comes in, just pulls the cables in, and then you have another company that comes in and joints them all and crimps them all and puts them away into transformers. So, and then someone else has come and put the transformer on the roof, so, and then it's very, that's how it is on site. So you realise, but when you speak to these guys, they'll go, yeah, I just connect up transformers. That's all I do. And you speak to the other guy and he just does containment, and the other guy just pull cables in, but they're all electricians. They've all been to college. And before you go on an industrial site, or it's generally the companies that they work for and stuff, you don't really realise, but there's so many different specializations, but it's definitely not spoken about. I think personally it should be something that you do, like when you go to uni, right, and you do a history course or whatever, but then you then specialize in something, don't you, a specific thing. I think it should be like that, where you choose, right, I want to do fire alarm, or I want to do, and don't get me wrong, you could still be an electrician, you still could work anywhere, but you've chosen to further your knowledge in this specific area, and that would give you a greater opportunity to step into that area, once you leave college or whatever. And I think it would give people a lot more opportunity as well, because you make up your mind, I want to look into domestic or whatever, and then you can sort of leave college knowing that. But I think it will get there. I think a lot of people have been speaking about it on LinkedIn and stuff, especially with like the gold card system as well. There should be like your time served, at least in what sector and stuff like that. But yeah, at the minute, it's just, it's all CPD, isn't it, and stuff like that. But it's hard to track really and trace it all. But yeah, I think that's the way it should go, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot more, like with our channel, and there's other channels, so many people on YouTube as well, sort of talking about their experiences and what they do. And I think that's only a good thing if it's opening up people's eyes to how broad this industry is and how many
the digital world's take. Really
yeah.
And I think the electrical industry and just trades in general, I think, is catching up. But there's lots of content creators now, and people like yourself and companies and people talking about it. So it's a really good time to be an electrician, I think, or be a trade, actually. It's good.
Yeah. What are the working hours of an industrial electrician like? The reason I ask is because your typical domestic installation. You'd be there in the day, whatever the hours you choose. If you're self-employed, whether that's 9 till 5 or you're finishing early, you're typically getting these jobs done in the day, maybe on the weekend as well. But with
Yeah.
with industrial electricians, I would guess that you're having to go into buildings when people aren't there, out of working hours, maybe.
Yeah. So we I can't speak for everyone, but this has been doing it, 9 years, and this is my sort of outlook on it. I think electricians in general, anyway, like my partner's, I've been with her before as an electrician, so she's been here the whole time, and she's very used to the fact that I might have to work late, I might have to work early, I might have to work unsociable hours and stuff like that. So yeah, I think with our company, we do our 8 hours, and that doesn't include a lunch break. So you do your 8 hours on site. We like to get in as early as possible. And again, in the commercial industrial world, I think that's pretty similar for all trades, but especially electricians. I was 15 getting up at 4 in the morning, but it's just that's always the way it's been. You've got to get to site for 7, or like we work at RAF bases where everyone gets to site for 7, so we get to site for 6, 4:45, but it's in Lakenheath, which is 2 hours away. So you're leaving at 3:15 in the morning to get to the gate for quarter to 6. Like, you can miss all of the traffic to then sit in a cabin till 7, to start work. But if you got to site for 7, you'd be in a long queue because it's an RAF base. They individually search each van, they go through all your documents and that sort of stuff to get in. So you can't turn up at 7 because you're with all the other trades, all the other RAF personnel, everything. So, and then you work in London, you've got to get to site for 7. So you get in your tube at 6, you're leaving to get to the train station local to us for 5:30. And that's every day, for 6 months. And then just depending on the job, it's your 8 hours. So it's 7 till 3. And then that 8 hours doesn't include your lunch break. But what we have, and it's quite common on sites, if you have like a working lunch, then you just get that 15 minutes, that 20 minutes. And then, do you know what I mean? You don't have to stay an extra hour. As if you took your hour lunch, you've got to do your 8 hours on site. So you'd be doing a 9-hour day sort of thing. So what we'll do is we'll go sit in the canteen, we'll eat our food, smokers will have a quick fag, then we're straight back to it. We're not, sat round as when I did domestic, it's very much right. Let's go sit in the van for an hour, have our lunch, or go get a Mackey's or whatever. As on industrial sites, sometimes you're making off a fuse board and you're just eating your lunch while you're not even stopping.
It's making me sound tired, just making me feel tired thinking about that. And I'm getting hungry as well thinking about this. I need at least 45 minutes to actually eat, and that's solid just ploughing food in. I couldn't do it in 15 minutes.
But and then that's not it. You might find, so like we did a job in Moorgate in London, and just the way it fell, if you left, the train would come at like, I think it was 10 to 4 or 10 to 3. So it's 7 till 3. So you can't, to get the 10 to 3 train, you'd have to pack up off site for 2:30, So 3 o'clock would come, you'd down tools, and then you'd be waiting at the train station by 3:20 for 40, 50 minutes. So that job, we were like, well, we may as well work till 3:30, 4:45 every day, because the train doesn't come until 10 to 4. You can't get the 10 to 3 train because that would be leaving too early. So, you work in, obviously you get paid for it or whatever, but you're working 50 minutes longer every day just because of where you work in the site you're on and the way the train times fall. Do you know what I mean? As if you're a domestic, if you've got your own van and you're at the house, if you want to leave at the time you want to leave, you just get in your van and go, and you're generally local as well, as getting out of London at any time, wherever you live, is a nightmare, really, So that's the other thing. You've got to go where the work is. A lot of the time with industrial, it's not on your doorstep, we go
up and down the country.
Yeah, so our limit's about 2.5 hours. But we'll get like Lakenheath, we're there for like short little stints, weeks at a time, but then we'll do a job in Portsmouth where you're there for like 6 weeks or longer. So that's a 2-hour drive every day, which is so when we go that far, we'll get paid like half the travel time and stuff, because an hour's driving is about fair, but if you're going that far, or there'll be digs or stuff like that as well. That's the other thing. But we've got it easy compared to like some of the other sectors, like the water industry, Sparkies. You've got to go where the work is, and if the pumping station's 300 miles away, that's where you go and you stay away and you do your work there. And yeah, so we've got it easy in some respects compared to other people, or like nuclear power stations, right? If you're a complex electrician and you specialize in nuclear, you know, there's only a few of them, and there's not going to be one in your local town or, you know, around the corner. So you just sort of got to go where the work is. You know?
So hope it don't end up like Chernobyl as well.
Yeah.
So whoever's on them nuclear power plants, make sure you do a good job. We don't want that going wrong.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a few of like the different types of places, you know, the warehouses and factories and that kind of thing. But what's your typical customer? So how are you getting that work?
So we work for several tier one contractors, but through other contractors. So I don't know, to be fair. My boss is quite well connected, but we're a small company. We're only 4 years old, but he's been doing it 15 years, you know. But it's just all who, you know, we do a lot of facilities management for companies like Sainsbury's and Argos, Co-op and stuff like that. And they obviously have massive warehouses and distribution centres and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, when you're looking after those places, you're generally a good fit to, you know, fit them out as well and stuff. So there's stuff like that. We do a lot of strip out work for like companies like Cantillon, who sub to companies like Mace and Sir Robert McAlpine and stuff, you know, your big players. So when you're, you know, once you get in there, you're on a list and stuff like that. So there's loads of things like that. And it's all about, for us, upholding reputation. So we'll work late, we'll do a good job, because when it gets noticed by these people, you know. And we take a lot of pride in our work. So I think as a company, so I think that helps. But we also do, you know, we were at a local industrial estate, which was a cannabis farm throughout lockdown, and it got busted. And we're there now rewiring it all and doing all sorts, you know, afterwards. And that was just a local job, you know, picked up through, I don't know, through word of mouth or whatever. So, you know, and that's heavy duty industrial work as well. But we're the tier one contractor on there, you know, because it's just direct to the client. So, yeah, it's just, I guess you get a reputation, and it's very, I find, who you know in the industrial industry. It's definitely, you know, you build a name for yourself, and people, you know, for instance, my brother was an electrician for our company, and then he got headhunted to be a project manager for another company because he was, you know, a reputable electrician. So then he's in a position where he gets to choose what electricians he wants and all these other trades. And of course, he's worked at the company. I mean, he'll be biased anyway, maybe. But he knows the standard of work he gets from us. He knows the company. He knows the lads. So if you're going to project manage anyone, you'd probably go for someone you know rather than someone you don't.
Yeah, I suppose it's the same. It's the same for customers as well. You're going to pick a tradesperson who's done a good job, and you're going to recommend that person to anyone, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's the same thing, just on a, you know, a bigger scale, I guess. But it's the same thing, I find. You know.
What about the? So, are you doing just new installs, or are you going into doing repair work on previous installs, other people's works?
Probably 50% of our stuff is maintenance and repair, or additions to, you know, existing stuff.
Is the troubleshooting slightly different for that then? Because, like you say, a lot of places in the industrial, it's in cable trays, it's in trunking that's easy to get to. Whereas domestic, it could be buried in plaster and brick.
It is and it isn't. So, you know, there's a lot of these places you can't turn things off, you know. They're always going. So there's systems in place to work around that. Or you'll get given time slots, for instance, like you've got your hour. So you better find the fault within the hour, because that's how long you've got. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's hard. You know, you have different obstacles. So although stuff's made to be on show and is a lot more accessible, for instance, the cable tray might be, you know, 20 meters up in the air. So then you've got to get a scissor lift to get up there around a working warehouse. Then you've got to set up you've got to plan your route, and you've got to have your barriers. You've got to have a banksman, because there's forklifts moving and you're riding around on a scissor lift. So you've got to have two banksmen, you've got to have barriers. You've got to do a toolbox talk for everyone within the warehouse and stuff like that. So, you know, it has its own problems. So it might be easier work-wise, but there's a lot more politics involved, I find. And that's the other thing I didn't really mention about the working day, with the hours and stuff. Like you can lose almost up to 3 hours a day sometimes just trying to get into a place, get through all of the health and safety paperwork, get signed in, get your card scanned, added to a file. Then you have to do a site induction. So like on the bigger sites, we'll have to do like the SRM jobs, we have to do a health check. So you'll be seen by a doctor, get a fit for work certificate, because what they can't have is you know, being asthmatic or you having an underlying health condition, and then that causes you to, you know, pass out or anything to happen on site. And then, you know, you either cause harm to others because you're operating a machine or something, or, you know, just you dying on site because, you know, you've got some underlying health condition or something, or there might be something which is going to affect your underlying health condition on site which you're not aware of. So, you know, you have like a full medical to get on some of these sites, and then you have your induction for SRM, which could be 2 hours, videos, questionnaires, all that. And then we work for a specific HV company, and they also induct you for like their HV room. So then you have to do another hour induction. So about 12 o'clock, you come out, and then you get the tools out of the van, and then you can work. That's normally the first day. It's not every day, but some of them will have weekly inductions and toolbox talks. Some of them will have, if you have a near miss, you have to get re-inducted and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, sometimes you're just, before you even get on site, you've got, you know, if you're using specific tools, right? Yeah, they see the calibration certificates. Let's go through them. Right, let's inspect the tool, and you know, like there's so much politics involved. But
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think industrial electricians are in demand? I think there's a lot of work out there for
I
them.
think so. I think there's good industrial electricians in demand. I think there's a lot of industrial work's done by agencies as well. We use them. You know, if we take on a job, we've got 15 guys on. But if we've got a lot of projects on, we might only be able to spare 5 guys for a large project that needs 15 guys, right? So we'll get 10 agency guys in, and we'll, you know, if it's a long job, say like 6 months to a year, and we need 10 agency guys, we'll probably go through 30 to 40 to get the 10 that we want. And even then, you won't be happy with some of them, but, you know, because it's just no disrespect to them, but some of them are, for instance, people who do a short course to enter the industry, and obviously they can't get an apprenticeship, so they join an agency, right, because they can get them work, which is fair enough. But then they're sort of been doing it 6 months, and they've done all of their learning on a short course online or something, and then now they're on an industrial project with serious systems that even fully qualified electricians don't understand. And that, you know, so we'll work them out and basically nicely say, look, mate, sorry, it's not for you, you know, just because we're paying you and you're not. The other thing is competency. You know, if you're not competent in something, the biggest measure of being competent is knowing what you can and can't do. And the problem with agency sparks is they're just trying to get a wage. They're just desperate for the experience a lot of the time. So they'll lie about what they can and can't do, right? Because no one wants someone who can't do something because it could be dangerous, or it could be, you know, costing money. So they'll say, oh yeah, I'm really good at this, I've got loads of experience. And then you get them on site and you're like, no way have you got that experience. You could just tell, you know. But then you get some really good ones. And the thing is with the really good ones is they're in high demand themselves. So they're hard to get hold of. And basically we've got a couple who work for us where we've ended up going direct and saying, look, just come work for us just full time, you know, and if the money's right or whatever they might do. But it's good industrial labour is hard to get. But in the same flip side of the coin, on larger jobs, you do just need your boots on the ground. You know, you do just need labour, not necessarily skilled labour either. You know, that's the other thing. You'll get a lot of you're doing a big containment job. You won't even get electricians doing it. Sometimes you'll get like a containment firm in because you don't need an electrical qualification to cut bits of unistrut and stuff. Electricians will do a better job. The electricians will consider, you know, how the cable's going to sit on the containment and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, it's a bit like the plumbing. You know, you can have a plumber who can connect it all up and knows the science, or you can get a pipe fitter who just fits hundreds of meters of pipe and welds it all together for you, and that's him. But he's not a plumber. But you know, so I find, yeah, to get
You're
skilled.
Gonna have angry plumbers commenting on the video now. Before we finish this episode, what would be your advice to anyone sort of thinking about getting into becoming an industrial electrician?
Find a good company to work for and invest in them, and they will invest in you. And yeah, just go back to competence. Know what you know and know what you don't know. And I think people will only respect you for that. And I've found the more whenever I'm honest about something, I'll either get training to do it, or I'll get to work with someone that does know what they're doing, and then I'll learn it, rather than saying, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing and messing it up. So yeah, it is very daunting from an outsider. It was for me when I first entered at a young age as well. But yeah, just, you know, find a good company, gain experience. You can't fast track experience, and yeah, know what you know and know what you don't.
Yeah, I think with whatever you're doing, I think you find the more you know, the more you realise you don't know.
So, yeah, exactly.
And be honest about what you don't know, and either get someone who does know how to do it, or learn how to do it properly.
Yeah.
And like you said, though, I think you get more respect for someone if you ask. Say if you've got someone on your books who is qualified and they're good at a certain aspect, and you say, "Oh, do you know how to do this?" and they say no, I think you're going to respect that person more than being honest and being, "Oh, yeah, I'll figure that out," and then something goes wrong and it could cost your firm a lot of money. So
yeah, definitely.
But anyway, that comes to the end of this episode about the job routes to electricians. So I hope everyone out there who's been watching this has found it useful. Please make sure you like, subscribe and hit the notification button. There'll be more videos on job routes for electricians, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you again, mate. So we'll see you next time.